Welcome to the Colombian Code, El Código Colombiano. Yeah, today is a good day because today we're going to talk about money. Now, if you've ever had to exchange money in Colombia, then you've probably visited a Casa de Cambio or exchange house like the one we're at today. These establishments work by exchanging your US dollars or foreign currency for Colombian pesos, or vice versa, for a fee, of course. And the amount of Colombian pesos you get for your US dollars will depend on the global currency exchange rates, which fluctuate based on the economy and global market. So I want to break it down for the code disciples so you all can understand what 2,000 US dollars is really worth in Colombia. Now, the current exchange rate for the Colombian peso, as I'm recording this today in September 2025, is 0.00025 US dollars, which we often refer to as a ratio of 4 to 1 or 400 to 1. That means for every 100 US dollars, you will get roughly 400,000 pesos. Now, this rate obviously fluctuates from day to day. For example, we may be at 400 today and 399 or 401 tomorrow. But one thing's for sure, ever since Trump took office back in January, the US dollar has been in an absolute free fall, losing well over a half a point to the Colombian peso since the end of last year. So why does this matter? Well, a lot of Americans and people who make their money in US dollars like visiting places like Colombia, among other countries in Latino America, because they find it more economical or affordable compared to the US and other Western countries. This is because of the strength of the US dollar in comparison with the currencies of other Latin American countries. So let's break it down further. Using the 4 to 1 ratio, for 2,000 US dollars, you would get 8 million Colombian pesos. If the dollar goes up half a point to 4.5, for that same $2,000, you would get 9 million pesos. If the dollar drops half a point to 3.5, for that same $2,000, you would get 7 million pesos. That's a 1 point swing differential between the two that's worth 2 million Colombian pesos or 500 US dollars. As you can see, the more favorable the exchange rate, the more pesos you get for your dollar. Over time, that adds up to make a difference in your purchasing power. But let's not get carried away here, because despite getting more pesos for your dollar, being a thousandaire in the States most certainly does not make you a multimillionaire in Colombia. Remember, I'm here to separate fantasy from reality. Now, one of the most common things you'll hear from foreigners is the claim of how they can live here for a fraction of the cost of what they would spend in the States or other Western countries. And the reality is, that's not exactly true. Now, if you're living out in one of the pueblos or in the barrio like a local, then yes, generally, your cost of living will be less than if you were in the city. But Medellin is a totally different animal today. Medellin is now the hottest destination in all of Latino America. So if you think you're going to live in Medellin for a fraction of the cost of what you'd spend in the States today in 2025, unless you're coming from a place like New York, you got another thing coming. Yes, the general cost of living is still less than in the US. Things like food, transport, utilities, for example, are all generally less expensive. But there's also certain items that are typically more expensive here. Things like cars, furniture, electronics. And don't get it twisted, inflation is happening here too, so prices are rising. Real estate and property rentals in Medellin are up 300% since the pandemic. And I see a lot of listings being priced for double their fair market value. So when I hear people claim that they can live like a king in Medellin on $2,000 per month, that's laughable. That's a fantasy. Hey, you want to live out in the barrio like a local? Go right ahead. But to the code disciples who really want to live here and be part of higher class society, you already know $2,000 per month is just not going to cut it. So I say all that to say this. If you're looking at Colombia, particularly Medellin, as a more affordable option for living and doing business, then you need to be realistic with your expectations. Yes, the cost of living in general is less than in the US, but ultimately, things cost what they cost. If a bottle of wine costs 50 US dollars, you're not going to get it for less because you bought it in Colombian pesos. Yes, a favorable exchange rate from a strong US dollar helps, but right now, the US dollar is in free fall, inflation is rising, and my colleagues and I can only shake our heads in disbelief at these crazy real estate prices. If you're looking for a place to invest, Colombia is still a great option with plenty of opportunity. And I highly recommend you to check our previous episode on investment if you want to know the best industries to invest in. I invite all the code disciples to take advantage of the opportunity Colombia has to offer. But don't get caught up in the fantasy and don't come to Medellin thinking you're going to live like royalty on $2,000 per month. Remember, the code disciples know better. So subscribe and follow the code. Till the next episode. Salute.